How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 22 of the Flight Time Podcast. And man, we have got a lot to catch up on. There's a lot of really interesting things happening in the drone industry. And I feel like it's just been the past couple of months where things have really taken off. And I think that this is like what we've been waiting for, because think about how dry it's been.
It has. It seems like everything's come all at once right now towards the end of the year.
And it makes sense because it's the holiday season, but there's really only 2 drones out of, I guess, like the 4 that we really want to talk about that are coming out before the holidays. We've also got like the Evo and the Mavic 3 potentially coming out next year, but I feel like those drones could potentially be, priced at a point where they're not really holiday gifts, whereas like the Mavic Mini was released strategically because it's going to sell like hotcakes for the holiday season.
Yeah, 100%. The mini sales have probably far exceeded any drone that's been released previously, and I think it was a genius move. I know people are like probably really tired about hearing all of us talk about it, and we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that because we do have another drone that is set to be delivered next week. I know you probably got your shipping information as well, did you, on the Skydio?
Yeah, I did, and it's coming early next week. I actually didn't even check my UPS information, but so the Skydio is shipping next week, and I think that these Mavic Mini videos have been doing really well. Just kind of talking from the standpoint of somebody who's been uploading a lot of Mavic Mini videos, they're doing really well in terms of views, and they seem to be really well received. But I don't think the Skydio will do that, because
I agree with you. 100%. It's more of a niche drone, and the longer I'm waiting for it, the less interested I'm becoming in the drone. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like we've seen it, and I feel sort of jaded. Maybe this is the prima donna in me that feels a little bit jaded that Skydio didn't reach out to any drone channels or people who do this like somewhat regularly.
Yeah, really weird.
And I sort of feel like, okay, guys, what are you hiding? And the fact that the controller is also not shipping at the same point, that they are waiting, till late December to ship that. And I'm just sort of like, all right, what's the deal here? Like, who is your target audience for this drone at this point? Because that doesn't feel like it's drone enthusiasts.
Yeah, and do you know what I find pretty interesting about the controller shipping later? What did they really have to do on the front of developing this controller?
Nothing.
Think about it. They're using Parrot's design. They got to change the internals
at this point. Well, I don't think they. Maybe it depends on what receivers they use. I mean, if we think about it like in FPV terms, receivers can be universally changed to work with different controllers. I would imagine that there is some sort of receiver that the Parrot is using to make that controller talk to one another. So I would guess that the Skydio has something similar. I would imagine that's probably the only thing that's changed, at least, from looking at it on a surface level. And then, of course, they have to program it with their firmware and then vet that. But part of me almost feels, and I could be wrong, maybe I'm out of line, is that they almost didn't start assembling, or they didn't have everything ready to go until they got deposits. You know what I mean? Like, sort of like, all right, well, we need the money, we need the funds to finish paying our suppliers type of thing.
I do wonder that as well, because what was their original? They were going to ship in November, right?
They were shipping in November, and then they sort of silently missed that deadline. They didn't say anything. We got some emails here and there, but they sort of missed that deadline. I did hear rumors that there were some capital venture companies that did invest in them. And one of them I thought was a company that used to invest in Motorola. I know there was some talk about it at Commercial UAV.
Well, it makes sense.
I just found that weird. I just found find sort of some of the things, like the way they're doing things, a little bit odd.
Yeah.
I just hope I don't regret buying this thing.
Yeah, well, look, let's lay all the cards on the table right now. The Mavic Mini just came out. The Skydio 2 is out. That's kind of like a drone of its own class. Some drones that we seem to be seeing leaks about, I would say more so the Autel Evo, like the Evo 2.
How weird is that, man? That like
I know.
They didn't want to even. So the funny story about the Evo 2, like literally, I'm at Commercial UAV, and we're busting the VP's just balls about letting us see the drone. This is Zach and I, the owner of DroneWorks. We're just beating him up about letting him see it. And one of his lackeys wouldn't let us even near the case. They literally flew the Evo 2 from behind that bus. That was that thermal camera.
Really?
But I mean, so it's like, you wouldn't let us see it. Like, we talked about it at CES. You wouldn't let us see it. We already sort of knew the specs. I even said it. Remember when we were at CES, I said, this thing's going to have a ridiculous resolution.
Yeah.
I said 6K. And we just never really talked about it again because, it was just talk. And now, obviously, we've seen the documents. But I don't know. It's like so weird that they took the photos and let the FCC just sort of put it all out there like that.
Well, and I've got some mixed feelings about the design. But in terms of what else we're kind of expecting, DJI is going to have to answer to all of this with something. There's been Mavic 3.
They're going to come hard, dude.
Yeah, there's been Mavic 3 rumors, but there's nothing substantial to touch on. So that's why I'm more reluctant to talk a little bit about the Autel Evo too. What's one thing that really pisses me off about drones is when they have like a spherical camera, and I don't understand why the Evo has that spherical camera in those FCC photos. In my opinion, when I look at the Evo, okay, it looks like an alright looking drone. The propellers look ugly and the camera looks ugly. Those are my first initial design impressions.
So here's the thing with the cameras. In talking to Jeff, the VP, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this information or not, but I'm going to say it anyways. Initially, the reason why we could not see the first design of the Evo was because in design they put the wrong camera on it. I don't know if the wrong camera is actually on it in those photos, but what you see may not be the final product, because he even said, he goes, we were ready to ship, but the wrong camera is in place. So obviously It's a big deal they used the wrong camera, and they were specifically talking about the FLIR, the dual camera setup, and that silver camera, I believe that's the side-by-side dual camera that we're seeing, and that's probably the wrong one. Because
what do you think of those props? How ugly are they?
Yeah, they're pretty ugly, dude. They're pretty ugly. But I mean, once they're spinning, you don't see them,
I know, but I specifically don't use the low noise props for the Phantom because they look ugly. And I also don't really like the way they sound.
You're a vain person, though. You are a vain person.
I'm big on the looks of a drone, and all of the Mavic drones look great. I never really liked the design of the Mavic Air. It was kind of like big and boxy, but like the straight edges on the Mavic 2 and the straight edges on the Mavic Mini look great. And the Evo, kind of like the first Evo, the second Evo looks like curvy, and it looks like thick.
It sort of looks like a Porsche, man.
Yeah.
It has a Porsche-like design, and it was funny. That is how this drone was described to me for a long time when I was like, what does it look like? And they kept coming back with, well, it sort of looks like a Porsche. And I'm okay. I like that it's flat, though. There's no glossy finish to it, though.
Yeah,
like
so like a matte finish.
Yeah, I'm still not a fan of the orange, though. I wish they would just give me one black special edition Dobo Evo.
Well, I don't understand why for any of these drones they don't offer multiple colors. Like for the Mavic Mini, I don't understand why they didn't come out and offer different colors, like a black and a white and like a silver version or something like that.
Apparently it costs a lot of money. When I was in Seattle, I asked him, I said, how come you don't have different colors? And basically, to build those molds and the plastic, to build the ABS plastics that they're using to build these chassis, it costs money, and like the suppliers want a really large commitment. And I'm like, dude, listen, if you made a black Evo, people are gonna buy it. Like people are gonna buy it. But I would buy it just because of color. I even said I'd pay a little bit more.
Well, exactly, and they could charge a little bit more and maybe offer something extra to make it seem like you're getting more with like a black version. I get that orange is their thing, and I think that it kind of in a way helps them stand out. But it's almost one of the things that almost makes me not want to buy it, because like I don't want to fly an orange drone, and there's a lot of people that feel that way. I know that I kind of probably sound stupid, but a little bit more about this Autel Evo 2, right? It's got interchangeable gimbals, which is pretty huge. There's 3 different gimbals slated to come out, and you know what? I just didn't understand when reading that drone DJ article. I felt like it was all over the place. I didn't get a good understanding of what each of the cameras did and what they offered.
So here's a breakdown of the cameras, sort of like based upon, firsthand knowledge. We have the 6K sensor, 1 inch, which is, that's going to be their flagship sensor. Like the 1 inch is their flagship. It has an adjustable aperture, 6K resolution, and it's going to have a 21 megapixel sensor. That is going to be like their baby. So they've totally bypassed, 4K at this point.
Yeah, and you know what? 21 megapixels, I almost wish for a little bit more.
So you will get more, but then you'll have to lean towards their 8K sensor, and their 8K sensor is going to be a 41 megapixel sensor.
I thought I saw 48.
48, maybe it's 48, but it's not going to be a 1 inch sensor.
Yeah, what is the sensor?
It's still it's a compact sensor. So you have compact sensors with higher megapixels, but part of me wonders if it's going to suffer from some of the compression issues that stems from cramming that many megapixels in a smaller sensor. And
it won't be good in low light.
Probably not. I think the vast majority of flyers like us are going to lean towards that larger sensor. And from what I'm hearing is that we can definitely expect a more of a premium price tag out of this drone.
I could definitely see. The one thing that kind of stood out to me when I was reading that Drone DJ article is that it has a 16-mile range. Do you believe that? Do you think that that's actually going to be true?
So from what I saw from the technology that they've put into their Dragonfish, the Dragonfish can fly 17 miles. Like 17 miles unhindered.
But that drone is massive.
That drone is massive. And it does have, some different things going on there. I know one of the topics that Tim and crew stressed at Autel is that they were trying to work on their transmission signal. They were trying to find something that could compete with what DJI has with OcuSync.
I mean, think about the downfalls of like good drones out there. It's typically the transmission system, right?
It comes down to the transmission system. Video resolution back down to the RC, and just overall control, in congested areas. I mean, here's my thing. Even if they didn't get 16 miles and they can get half of that, how impressive would that be for a drone to be controlled for, let's say, 8 miles? That would be incredible. I'd take half of 16 even.
Yeah, it's true. And you've got to weigh in the flight time, which I believe they said is like 35 minutes. You've got to weigh in the flight time with that range, because if you've got 16 miles, you're going to need about 45 minutes of flight time to get out 16 miles and then to come back. I mean, a 32-mile round trip is not going to be fast. And that's something that I think is a little bit underwhelming for me, is the top speed of this drone at 44 miles an hour. It seems like it's packing some great specs in so many different areas, and then to see that it only goes 44 miles an hour, which I understand, it still is a pretty fast drone, but I would expect them to push the envelope a little bit more in that department.
I mean, I'm sure they could, but what I'm learning is, like, with a lot of these ESCs, there's certain tolerances on the batteries. One of the things that we're seeing, and we've talked about this before, is the fact that the technology that we're putting into these drones is constantly improving. Mm-hmm. However, what's not really changing is the battery tech. Now, they did change the battery a little bit, which I'm really, really glad they did change the battery design on this time, that it now slides into the drone. Because one of the problems I have with my Evo is if I pack it in the bag and I leave the battery on, I've done this on a plane before, accidentally turned the drone on an airplane, and I had to quickly unhinge it and pull it out before I burned the gimbal motor up. Mm-hmm. So, pro tip, if you're traveling with your Evo in a backpack, make sure the battery is not in the Evo itself, because you can accidentally turn it on, because they don't have that safe feature like DJI. It's a tap and then a long press.
Yes.
With Evo, it's just a long press to turn that battery on. So they made changes there, which I think is a good deal. Also, a larger battery capacity at almost 7,000 milliamp hours is insane. That's a huge jump over the 4,000 milliamp hours now. So I think that's a good move. it sucks that we're not going to see sort of the same design. So if you have Evo batteries, you're not going to be able to use those Evo batteries with Evo 2.
Yeah, and that's almost a given. In terms of everything we're talking about here, though, with the Evo 2, I think that I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt, except for the photos.
I would encourage.
I think that those photos are legit. I think that they are from top to bottom. That's what the Evo is going to look like. But in terms of what the specs are, that's the one thing that I'm definitely going to be taking with a grain of salt.
I think they started working on this a long time ago. Possibly, you think about it, look how long it took for Evo to hit our hands, and understanding some of the pitfalls with that. I think immediately after they saw the demand for the Evo 1, they probably started design for an Evo 2.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that was stressed is that they've sort of been very low key with it, because they don't want another repeat of what happened with Evo 1, where it debuts at CES and they can't deliver until 6 months later. That will not happen again, is what was said to me. That's not going to happen again.
And that's good to hear, because they understand that they made a mistake in doing that. I mean, that was like, I didn't even order it, and that was like one of the most stressful times for me.
It was a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
Because it was like, and even the release date, the actual release date, it was said to be the 10th of June, and then it wasn't the 10th of June. And then it was like, all right, well, people already posted their videos, so full send, let it go. So, it was one of those things.
What? I guess the expected release is CES, right? That's what people are saying.
That's what we're hearing, but, I don't know. Anything's open for discussion. I think it's more right now a wait and see. They're going to wait and see what DJI does, because if you remember last year, just before CES, DJI slammed us with the smart controller. They had like their own like little event, announced the smart controller, and then we got to go hands-on with it at CES. So I think, from Autel's perspective, they're probably going to be like, all right, well, let's see what our competitor does. Are they going to bring anything to CES? If they aren't, is it worth us, bringing a massive presence to CES? They almost have to. They showed the Evo twice, 2 years in a row at CES.
I think that you're right in that regard. Maybe if they released something smaller at CES, because I think that that's what CES is good for, releasing smaller accessories. But if they want to release an Evo 2, I think that doing their own event would speak much more than just going and doing it at CES. That's what I personally like. I like when these companies make up this whole big show and they release it on their own stage, whereas at CES things can get a little bit messy. Is there anything else you want to talk about the Evo 2? Because I kind of want to switch gears here.
No. I think that's it for the moment. I mean, y'all seen the videos that are out there. You've seen the information. Until we get new substantial information, we're only a month away, a little less than a month away from CES. So I think you guys can hold on to your seats until things get firmed up.
Yeah. So here's something that I asked on Twitter. Like I tweeted it out, and I think I put it on Facebook and YouTube or whatever. And it's something I want to pose to you guys listening to this podcast right now. Do you think that in order to compete with Skydio, DJI should totally revamp their Mavic line and make it an autonomous drone, or do you think that they should totally come out with a separate like autonomous line of drones? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I saw that question and I sort of danced around that, because I was like, man, that's a deep. You've been going through these deep thoughts rants lately.
Well,
but
so hold on.
man,
Before let me explain myself really quickly. Kind of my thought process here, right? And Sean Oz is somebody who responded to me almost immediately saying, "Well, why can't it be both?" And you might be thinking to yourself,
I'm avoiding Sean Oz.
What'd you say?
I said I'm avoiding Sean Oz right now.
Well, you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, why can't it be both? Well, that's like saying, why can't I go and buy an action camera that has interchangeable lenses and can shoot 6K video and yada, 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 right? If they want to make a drone that is fully autonomous, I think that they need to look at every single aspect of that drone and make it autonomous. And one of the aspects might be making sure the camera is smaller and making sure you're not using as big of a sensor, whereas if you're coming from like the Mavic 2 Pro and you see that with the Mavic 3 they focus on autonomy rather than the camera, you might be sitting there scratching yourself like, this is a step backwards. Like, I think a lot of the people purchased the Mavic because they want to take great photos. They want to take great videos. And I think that the Skydio will be able to shoot some great images, but I don't think that that's its strong point. The autonomy is its strong point. The way that it can work in action scenarios is its strong point. Whereas if DJI were to come out with their own line of autonomous drones and say that that's what it was built on, I think that it would do a little bit better.
Okay, so I agree with you with all of that, because I was thinking about, a lot of people are complaining with Skydio that you can't fly at night, and I'm looking at a bunch of my action cameras sitting on the shelf, and I'm thinking to myself, when do I ever take those and just go film at night? Yep. The answer is never. I never take them out at night because they're not meant for night. Mm-hmm. I know they don't do well, but I'm not mad about it because I'm not, sliding down some slopes or boosting, around town at night. I'm typically doing that during the day because that's when you're going to capture the best footage.
Yeah.
If I want something like that, I take the Mavic if I'm going to film at night, or I take my Sony if I want to film at night, because that's where it excels. I think they need to build a separate drone that can compete with what they're offering.
Exactly, because look, me are fortunate enough to have these different drones where, I use different drones for different scenarios. I shoot a lot of video with the Inspire 2. I shoot a lot of photos with the Mavic 2 Pro. The Mavic Mini has been like a go-to to just keep inside of my bag, and anytime I need to fly, I can, because I've got the Mavic Mini on me. And when I get the Skydio 2, I can almost guarantee that, I guess besides the initial testing, I'm not going to use the Skydio 2 over the Mavic 2 Pro to go out and shoot a commercial job, or I'm not going to take my Skydio 2 over my Mavic 2 Pro to go and shoot beautiful skyline shots in Philly. If I'm going to go boosting on my boosted board, or if I'm going to go skiing, yes, I'm going to bring the Skydio 2. So there's these two different drones that do two totally different things. And if DJI pulls away and says, well, look, we're going to turn the Mavic 3, the Mavic lineup into an autonomous-centric drone, they're kind of going to be leaving a lot of the people like you and me who expect to have a really great camera on this drone behind. And I'm probably going to be looking elsewhere at like the Autel Evo if that's what they're going to deliver on,
Yeah, I feel that, because I hate to say it, and I think maybe either some people will agree with what I'm about to say or some people won't. I already feel alienated by Skydio. As somebody who flies daily, I just feel like their demeanor towards people who do this regularly and who are in this hobby, should feel a little bit alienated or jaded, and just sort of the way this drone has been presented, because it's everything you've seen it do has been geared towards somebody who's maybe active or skateboards, snowboards, or does something extreme. And let's face it, there's a lot of our audience that just enjoy taking something out, flying, and knowing that it's not going to wreck. Yeah, it's not sexy, that type of flight, but it's fun for that person flying. And I just feel like sort of a whole user base has been alienated so far. I know I'm shifting gears and sort of hating on them a little bit, but the more and more, like, I keep sort of scratching my head with everything as I process it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point, but you even have to look at the design of these drones, right? Like the Mavic, when you look at it, you're like, yeah, that's going to be a great photo and video drone. But you look at the Skydio, it almost looks like more of a racer, and it looks like the type of drone that would fit what it's going to do. It's an autonomous drone that flies on its own. It's going to be able to make quick, agile movements, whereas if DJI were to come out with something brand new, I think it would resemble that same look. Like if they were coming out with an autonomous-centric drone, it's going to look more like a racer rather than something that looks like the Inspire, something that looks like the Phantom that's dedicated to shooting those high-resolution photos and those high-resolution videos. So I think in saying that, I really hope that they come out with another line of drones, because you look at all of these different manufacturers, they all have one line of drones, right? Or one line of drone. Autel, their Evo. Parrot, their Anafi. Skydio, the Skydio. Whereas DJI has all these different levels of drones, but they've almost been chopping them off ever so slightly. We've now come to the point where we only have Mavic and Inspire. think about it, right? Sure, there's different levels of Mavic, and there's the one Inspire too, but you can't really buy the Phantom. The Spark is gone, so that leaves room for DJI to come out with something brand new with a brand new name that is focused on something totally different than what their older drones were focused on. Right? Does that make sense?
No. That logic makes sense. I mean, nothing with DJI marketing really makes sense. I mean, when we really
except
look at it, but some of the things that they've done recently have made more sense. Like the Mavic Mini, that was a slam dunk, no brainer. Can't really fault them for that. That was a good move.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The one thing that I think that they do incredibly well is the launch of a product, like the actual day when it launches, from what they tweet out, what they put on Instagram, who they send the drone to, the different influencers. I mean, they hit everybody from every single demographic. It's incredible how they do things. And I think that these other companies like Skydio might catch on, and I even think that Autel, hopefully with like the Evo 2, will catch on. With their very first drone, it's a little bit more hard with that first Evo, and with Skydio, maybe with the Skydio 2, it's going to be hard to get it in the hands of certain influencers. But I hope that moving forward, they take a page out of DJI's book, because it's not like I'm sitting here saying, well, I just want a free drone, but I think that it's an incredible way to market a product.
No, I mean, hell, I mean, we both paid for this Skydio full bore. Like, there's nothing like, when we're reviewing these, it's not that they were handed to us. We paid for those. I mean, it'd be cool to have early access to the product so we can get some hands-on time, give our honest opinions, and, even with paying for it. And if that helped their development team, so be it. If not, okay. And obviously they've chosen to go, a different route, and I'll respect that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I respect that. But it is what it is in that regard.
Yeah. So the other day, you probably, it's funny. I out of everybody who I've seen that has been like getting the access to the Skydio, or have been getting emails from Skydio, there's only been 3 people I know of that have gotten these shipping emails. It's you, me, and Kluge. So I don't know if anybody else has gotten them. If you have, let us know, because I'd be interested to see like how many they've already gone and prepared to ship.
Jake Sloan, I saw tweet it. He finally got his, but he got his to pay for it, not that it shipped.
Okay.
I think Russ may have gotten it. I don't know if he did or didn't. He's got luck ordering things.
Yeah, here's something that I want to give to you guys as like a little bit of a warning, right? So this is going to be totally unrelated here, but I was going to buy my dog like this smart collar, right? And it was half off, and it was like $70. It tracks them, it does all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. Like, this is something that I want to buy. But then you go and you look and say, oh, wow, look at how much I'm going to have to spend every single year in order to continue to have this LTE connection, right? And Skydio does the same thing. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, the Skydio 2 is $1,000. I have to put $100 down. But, in my mind, I don't know where I thought or how much I thought this was going to cost, but I spent $1,300 on that drone. It was more like $1,400 on the drone. So sure, they might say our drone is $1,000, but when I went and added on the GPS module, when I added on the remote controller, and when I added on the extra battery, which I probably am going to buy more batteries, you're going to look at spending a good amount of money. So it's definitely something to consider, because I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to have to put another $800 down. But then when you think about everything that adds up, it does get up there into potentially the high, thousands of dollars, like between like 15 and 2,000, depending on how many batteries you get.
Yeah, so I was in that boat. When they first announced this, it was, hey, it's $999, $100 down, and I'm thinking, oh, that's not bad. And I'm like, well, okay, I've got time. Make some money, put it off to the side, and by the time it's ready to ship, I'll have all of the money there. And then I'm like, okay, get the email, and then it's like, okay, add on your controller, add on the beacon. And I'm like, well, I don't want to just have one battery. I need 2 batteries at least. So add on a battery. Yeah, $1,400 out the door. Now, one thing I wish I wouldn't have did, if I would have known, I could have saved myself $150 and just waited to order the controller till later.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if it's not going to ship till later, and I'm sure a lot of people have the same mentality, they're not going to order a controller because they're like, crap, this is already costing me, $1,000, and now I'm adding all these accessories on, and now I'm like way out there. So I don't know. I'm a little annoyed that the controller is not shipping at the same time.
I agree with you, and here's the thing: if anybody else is thinking about taking Ken's advice and like, yeah, you know what, I'll just wait to order the remote controller later because it's not shipping until later. The way that Skydio acts and the way that they operate, and we've seen this with the launch of the Skydio 2, is they operate in queues. So if you don't buy that remote controller and you choose to buy it later, you can bet that you're going to be put towards the end of some sort of queue. And even though you might say, oh, they're not shipping until late December, don't think you can wait until late December and order it and you're going to get it shipped right away, because you could be waiting until January, February, maybe even March. I mean,
they act a lot like Tesla, how they run their. This is like the Tesla of drones as far as ordering systems goes.
Well, you know what? We were talking about what drones look like, and I was going to compare the Mavic to the Cybertruck because they look kind of the same. Like, there's no curved edges. It's all just straight lines. I mean, it pretty much is the Cybertruck, or the Cybertruck is the Mavic. They look a lot alike. They have the same design cues.
That's so bizarre, though, like, yeah, I guess you're right. That's funny, though.
And I think that really the main point we're trying to get to throughout this podcast is there's been so many people saying the drone industry is dead. Drones are going nowhere. What recently has come out in the drone industry, and look at it right now. I've been talking to a couple of people, right, and just people who create content on YouTube. And I'll put this out there for anybody that's looking to get started creating content on YouTube. This boom we're seeing with drones right now is bigger than the boom that we saw with the original Mavic Pro. Like, when you look at the statistics and analytics, like especially on my channel, there's a massive spike when the Mavic Pro came out, and then it dips down, and there's spikes when new drones come out. I haven't seen a spike like I'm getting right now since I have with that original Mavic Pro, and it's due to not only the Mavic Mini, but the Skydio, and then the potential Autel Evo 2 and the Mavic 3. So I think that the next 6 months is going to be an incredibly fun time to be a drone operator, and I hope that DJI didn't prematurely ruin it for us all by almost intentionally taking a stab at the FAA and releasing a drone that's 249 grams. What if the FAA just said, all right, well, look, now you're going to have to register it if it's between 255 pounds. They could easily do something like that. I
don't think that's their mantra. You know what I mean?
Dude, I know. I saw somebody comment on a video that I did a long time ago about drone rules, regulations, stuff like that, right? And they were like, oh, anybody who's got a Mavic Mini, you've got to make sure that you register that drone because it's going to be no time before the FAA goes and changes the rules. So you may as well just register it now. You may as well register yourself. And I'm thinking to myself, like, nah, you probably shouldn't. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel like the FAA, as a whole, they're not a malicious organization. They said, okay, 250 grams or whatever is the, what they consider like to be a hazard flying. They mandated that. If you've determined that 250 grams, above 250 grams is a danger, you can't I of course they could, but they would look like hypocrites to then say, well, now we're going to make 230 grams the new rule. It just wouldn't make sense. That's like saying, okay, well, now you can't drink till you're 18 or you're 30 because of whatever. I don't think they're going to do that, and then they're forever going to be playing a cat and mouse game with manufacturers, because manufacturers will always pursue innovation, and who's to say eventually drones aren't going to get lighter, more stable. Yeah. I mean, they just can't stop innovation. They just have to keep up with it. And honestly, I mean, with the Mini itself, if anybody from the FAA just got one in their hands and said, let me take off near an airport. Well, guess what? You're not going to do that. You can't do that. You can't even request authorizations. So, DJI did a good job with that anyways. Yeah,
with the Mavic Mini, they didn't you can't request authorization, which is kind of a pain. We got a firmware update today, or two it's going to be 3 days ago, 2 days ago when you guys actually watch this or listen to this podcast, that we got a firmware update, and it fixed some of the bugs. But I think that we're still awaiting a big firmware update from DJI that is going to potentially add some things to the Mavic Mini. Unlocking, it has been confirmed through DJI support on their Twitter, but in terms of other things, I mean, I'm very hopeful that they'll do some things like add panorama. They'll add some different shooting modes, because if you think about it, this drone is built on ease of use, and ease of use comes through intelligent flight modes, and the fact that the Mavic Mini only has 4 quick shots, I mean, that's it. Those are the only different flight modes that you have. It's almost backwards in my opinion. And I know that it's because of weight that they can't have the obstacle avoidance sensors in there, but like adding something in the software doesn't make it like heavier. Oh, dude, I just thought of something. I had a comment on my video where somebody said, how many firmware updates does it take before this drone gets over 250 grams? He was talking about as if like every firmware update, there's like more storage on the drone, so it adds weight. Dude, well,
that's like somebody saying, well, the reason why it can't shoot 4K is because 4K is heavier than 1080 and 2.7.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was eating cereal, and every time I like in the morning, if I'm eating breakfast or if I'm doing whatever, I sit there and I scroll through comments, respond, whatever, and I saw that and I almost spit my food out.
I could just picture you doing that too.
I mean, phone like almost dropped in the cereal bowl. I was like on the ground. I feel bad because obviously, you know, if somebody is brand new to flying drones, they might not understand. But yeah,
what? That's the most beautiful thing about the Mini, is because you're talking about those spikes. And I know we're talking a little bit about, you know, channel analytics and stuff, but you guys should be interested in this because this is good. The more pilots that we get and the more people that are interested in the hobby, it sort of preserves this. But I have seen so much new traffic myself, so many new subscribers, just to show you how much the Mavic Mini has done since. When did I post my video that I was wrong about it? What was that, like 2 weeks ago?
About, yeah. I kind of
we'll say 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, I grew 2,100 subscribers in 3 weeks.
It's absolutely insane.
That's incredible.
The real reason that it's happening is just because this drone is so accessible to so many people, and there's probably so many people that have bought it. Yeah, exactly. This brings up an interesting point. Ken, I want to ask your question on this, or I guess ask your opinion on this. This podcast is going to air in the morning, and then after this podcast goes live, I've got a video about the weight specifically of the Mavic Mini, and I had Russ talk with me about it, so it's going to be like a video with him and I on my channel, and the whole entire video is like, does the 249 grams even matter? And my thought process behind this, because I've seen a lot of comments, is like, well, for anybody who has already purchased a drone and is already registered, who cares about it being 249 grams, right? I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah, well, it does here, and I have to keep catching myself with that. Here, it doesn't really matter, because if you are already flying and you've already, you know, paid your $5 to register your drone, no, it doesn't really matter. Now, with that being said, they're going to make pilots take a knowledge test eventually for hobbyists, and they'll have to do that to be able to register a drone eventually. That's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to affect the 107. I know next year we have recertifications coming up the same day.
Yeah.
Which we got to do, but I think for countries like Canada and other parts of the world where they have like stringent restrictions, yeah, the weight limit does matter. I just don't think it necessarily affects the US. I guess we don't realize, as pilots here in the United States, we have it really good. It's somewhat lenient. There's a lot of information available to us, and we don't have like really, really super overbearing, you know, governments like people would like to believe. So Canadian pilots, they've got it the worst. 100%, they have it the worst.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And that's actually probably the only reason why the weight of this drone would be beneficial, other than the fact that it's like easy to bring around.
It is easy. And if you travel over to Canada, you don't have to worry about having a license to fly.
Exactly. When you go there, that's the drone that you bring, especially if you're from the States, because I mean, there's going to be nothing else that really
I would
can
bring
fly.
it to, you know, actually to take that further, I would probably say I would take the Mini with me anytime I traveled abroad, only because if I lost it, I would not feel bad whatsoever that I lost this drone because it cost $400, as to where if I lost my Mavic 2 Pro, I would be devastated. Or if I entered a country and immediately, like, look what would happen to Rick from Drone Valley. I forgot where he was. I think it was the Philippines or Taiwan. One of those countries he entered. He brought the Mavic Air with him. He was able to go into the country with the Air. He was not able to leave the country with the Air.
Yup.
That makes zero sense. And, basically he was like, well, goodbye. At the time, I think he paid $750 for that drone. And he was like, goodbye, Mavic Air.
Such
Took
a
SD
pain,
card
man.
out. And yeah. I mean, how terrible is that?
So horrible.
A little less thing at $399.
I seriously couldn't even imagine. I would rather lose my drone doing something badass, not just having it taken away from me.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like if they were gonna do, if that was the case, I'd be like, hang on a second, I'll board the next flight, and I would just go out and just put the drone into the most ridiculous situations.
Well,
if I knew,
you'd have to like move further away from the airport. You couldn't just take off right outside.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't do it near the airport, but. I mean, you know what I mean. It would just be like if I had one day to live type of thing.
Yeah.
Either that, or it's obviously you got to bribe these people in these countries.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Blackmail just goes so far in these countries.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up everything that we want to talk about in this episode. There is so much to look forward to in the coming months from drones.
CES.
Hey, dude, look, CES last year was bone dry with drone stuff.
It was bone dry. It sucked. We could have covered that entire event 2 days and been back home.
2 days, more like 2 hours. I could have done a lap and said, all right,
you're true.
Let's board the
I'm
flight
thinking this
home.
year's going to be huge, man. This year's going to be huge. I'm really excited about being out there again. You bringing a drone this year?
Yeah, probably the Mavic 2 Pro. That's here's my whole thing is like when I'm shooting with a drone, there's always times where like I shoot a photo and I go, oh man, that's a great photo I took with the Mavic Mini, but I wish I shot it with the Mavic 2 Pro. And the one thing that really is killing me about the Mavic Mini is no raw photo support. And people are like, oh, well, I hope that in a future firmware update they add it. They're not going to. They're not going to allow us.
They're never going to add it.
They're not going to let us take raw photos with the Mavic Mini. And sure, the JPEG images look great, but just the lack of camera control really kills it for me. It kind of sucks.
The lack of camera control in video, it just blows me away. Yeah, people are like, yeah, you can adjust the exposure by hitting exposure lock. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to control my damn shutter. I want to control my white balance and my ISO. Well, I want to be able to control those things.
Here's another thing: is like, are they even going to come out with ND filters for this thing? I don't think so.
You know damn well. Freewell, Polar Pro. Someone is going to come out with filters for this because of how many people bought this. They would be fools not to think. Who knows? Maybe Sandmark will come out with filters, and then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I burned that bridge today, so.
Well,
I'm good.
I do know that there could be some sort of company that comes up with like a unique design, but I don't think that it was DJI's intention to make ND filters for this thing, and I don't think that we're going to be seeing some first party ND filters from them. So
I think the people like Freewell, Polar Pro, let them make the filters for this. They really do it well. They think of everything. They make all the little tweaks that are accessible. I feel like sometimes when DJI makes something, it's okay. It's not amazing. It's just okay when they do accessories. I think, there's plenty of third parties that can do it better in that regard.
Yeah, and I recently I'm getting the variable ND from Polar Pro in the mail. I finally went along with that. So here's a question for you, and this is totally un-drone related. I guess I probably could have asked this off the stream, but now that I brought it up, I'll already ask you. Are you able to like use it as like a clear filter too, or no?
No, because it's even on the lowest reduction, it's still a little bit darker. Now, if you have super bright studio lights, you could, but the other problem is with ND filters, and there's no way around this. You're going to get some sort of color cast, and it's more noticeable indoors. So if you don't want color cast while you're sitting at your desk, don't use an ND filter. It's just strictly meant for outdoors, because the biggest problem I've seen with a lot of people is they'll get like a green color cast. The Polar Pro is very susceptible to a green tint, as to where like the Freewells were more like a mauve, like a sort of like a pinkish tint. So
cool.
You know, it's like pick your poison.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, really enjoyed this discussion. I think that these next 6 months are just going to be absolutely insane. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think down in the comment section. Let us know. For the next few episodes for this podcast, Ken, this is your first time hearing it too. We're only going to upload it to YouTube. I really just want to focus on growing the channel here. So for any of you guys that listen to us on like Spotify or Apple Music, they'll be up at some point in time. But I think just for the time being, especially during this crazy time, I'm going to focus on posting these to YouTube. And you know, they're pretty easy to just pop open on your phone. And if you've got YouTube Red, you can just go and do other things or just put the phone down and listen on your way to work. So hopefully you guys understand that.
Exactly.
But yeah, guys, again, thanks for tuning in. Ken, you have anything else?
No. I was just wondering, should we change the name of this from Flight Time to Part Time?
Sometime?
Kid. This is the Sometime podcast. No,
right.
It's, you know, the holidays and the Mavic Mini thing. We kept meaning to film, but we were just like, we'll get it tomorrow. We'll get it tomorrow.
Ken says to me, he goes, hey, do you want to film a podcast when it's actually recording a podcast?
I know. I'm film oriented, man.
Hey, this whole entire time that we've been filming, I've been watching this Cowboys game, and for anybody out there, I think I got a lot of Philadelphia subscribers. The Cowboys are currently losing to the Bears, and this is awesome. So I figured I'd share that with you.
That's terrible.
All right, guys.
Terrible.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll definitely have a lot more to talk about coming up because it is full bore drone season.
Tech season.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys later.
Later.